Chad, let's start with our number one UFA, and I think it's a pretty easy choice for first on our list, and that's Ivan Barbashev, now a two-time Stanley Cup champion with the St. Louis Blues and now the Vegas Golden Knights. He fit like a glove in Vegas. What a playoff run that he had, and we'll start with Barbashev. So let's get your contract prediction for the Russian forward.
Yeah, so if I can figure out how to make this not blur me, that would be great. I'm sure the YouTube viewers are going nuts about this. Hello, no more blurriness, please, Mr. Camera. But yeah, we'll start with Ivan Barbashev, the 27-year-old. The highest point total he's ever had is 60 in 81 games played. He had 45 in 82 this year, and as we all know, he's a Cup champ as well. So that is an important factor to consider, being a Cup champion, especially because of his playoff run as well. He had 18 points in 22 games played in these playoffs, and like we mentioned it, I think it was a few episodes ago, while we were still talking about the playoffs, and I said, I'm pretty sure this guy's deal is up, and if that's the case, which it is, he's going to get paid, and that's what I think is going to happen. I think a team is probably going to overpay him given his track record of production, but here's the deal. I think he could go to a team like Carolina for a nice simple 5x5 deal. You might think he could get more than that. You might think he could get a little bit less. But I think given the market, how it is right now, pretty thin, by the way, for UFAs. Yes. I think that Barbashev, atop the list, could get a nice little 5x5 deal in Carolina. I thought it made sense in Carolina because they're a team who, every year they've been really good in the regular season, and in the playoffs they haven't been able to get over the hump. And whether you think that's because of a lack of true superstars or what it is, or maybe they're soft or whatever, Ivan Barbashev, I think, would fix that. He's a guy who can produce in the playoffs like we saw just this year, and he's a guy who brings that different element that I don't think Carolina has a lot of. Or at least if they have a guy who has that element, I'm talking about that grit, the guy who battles like crazy and is tough to play against. It's not from their top guys like Aho, Svechnikov, Necas even. So I think he would be a great fit in Carolina if they decide that that's the way they want to go. The only reason I think it maybe wouldn't work out in Carolina is that they're a team known for not overpaying players. So if the bidding gets out of control, I would expect them to be out. But that's my prediction. What do you think of that one, Harp?
I like it, man. Carolina definitely is a team that struggles offensively. We've talked about that before, and I think part of it is, this is not anything against Rod Brindamore. He's a phenomenal coach, but I just think that they play a system that is so heavily focused on defense and a lot of dump and chase and forecheck, and they have to work so hard to score goals. And so I think a guy like Barbashev, who's got that offensive talent, he's only 27 years old, coming off the playoff run that he just had. That would be a dream of a first line, I think, of Barbashev with Svechnikov and Sebastian Aho in Carolina. I think that would be incredible. So I could see it for sure, and that would be a very interesting negotiation because, as we know, Carolina sets a price, and they tend not to go very far above their desired price for a player. So I could see it for sure.
That's right. And I thought also, too, this is relevant. I don't know what they're going to do with Max Pacioretty or what his deal will even look like because he is also a free agent. So if they choose not to bring him back, they would have the space to bring in a guy like Barbashev. But then, of course, if they choose to bring him back, even if it's for, $2-3 million on a 1-year deal, because, he didn't play all last year, so you don't really know where he's at or if he is going to play. But that would complicate things. So everything is all up in the air right now. But I think the fit, the team fit, I think, makes a lot of sense. And what I wanted to say, too, you're talking about the cap-friendly armchair GM. that's a bit complicated as well right now, because as we know, so much can change in terms of cap space, especially on a day like tomorrow at the draft. So, even what we're talking about right now, like if Cap Friendly shows a team has $4.5 million, well, that could be 10 tomorrow, or that could be 0 tomorrow. So it's all very up in the air, and especially this early in the offseason, it is a bit difficult to predict where that cap space is going to be for each team, but it at least gives us a ballpark. So I wanted to mention that as well, because as I went through Cap Friendly and was looking through the teams, I tried to do that. I tried to fit it under the cap, which made a lot of sense at the time. But then also you have to consider that it's just so variable at this point in the off season. So
it is. It's such a difficult exercise to do, and such a difficult thing to try and predict. But so going to me now with Barbashev, I've got him staying with the Vegas Golden Knights. Surprise, surprise. And you've got 5 times 5. I've got him just under $5 million. I've got him staying in Vegas with a nice 4.9, his jersey number 49, so that would be nice, times 4 years. So I think that, with the price a little lower, given that Vegas just won the Stanley Cup, and they've, as of right now, they've only got around $8.5 million in cap space. I think that they would be able to talk Barbashev into a nice deal like that, 4.9 times 4 years. And then, afterwards, he would only be 30 years old and potentially could cash in on another deal, either with Vegas or another team. So that's what I've got for Barbashev. And, it allows Vegas to also re-sign Aiden Hill to that rumored 4.9 times 2 years that we've seen reported by Elliot Friedman. So you'd be able to take care of that as well. And just as a roster move that they can make to free up a little bit of space to bring both of those guys back, because Vegas is in a nice spot for next year. They've got the majority of that roster all signed, all under contract, and back for next year to potentially go on a big run. So if they want to send out a guy like William Carrier, he makes $1.4 million for another year. You could probably get a decent return for a good bottom 6 forward like that. So I had Carrier traded to the St. Louis Blues, where he was drafted for a 3rd round pick, let's say, just to make it all work financially. So that's what I have. Barbashev staying in Vegas, $4.9 million times 4 years. What do you think?
I could see that happening as long as they can make it fit with both guys under the cap, because like you mentioned, that 4.9 deal for Aiden Hill we think is as good as done. Like it's probably ready to go, and I don't know if I agree with that deal. I think that's a bit of an overpay, and even Barbashev at 4.9 or 5 million, I think that could also be an overpay depending on what his regular season production is. But Vegas, they're able to keep the guys they want, and they're able to get rid of the guys that they don't, and they seem to do it every year, and they're ruthless about it. So even if one of those deals doesn't work out, I could see them moving on from a player like Barbashev or Hill if those deals don't work out. But yeah, it's all about the cap situation. If they can fit them both under, it would make a lot of sense, and I'm sure he would love to return to Vegas, where he just won the cup.